Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hi, Tara. How are you doing today?
I am glad to be here, and we are also joined by friend of the pod and our G League correspondent. Our friend Kat is here today. Hi, Kat. How are you?
Hello. How is everybody?
Hanging in there.
That's that's a hard question right now. I mean, especially basketball focused, because I don't know about you two. I really thought that I was just gonna breeze through this season, knowing that, oh, it's gonna be tough. They're not gonna win games. I thought I was just gonna like, I really over or underestimated my ability to handle this season because I'm not doing great when it comes to the Blazers this year. Help me.
Maybe I should have asked, how is your spirit?
Well, let me ask the elephant in the room.
I wonder what the elephant in the room spirit is like, is my real question.
Oh my gosh.
Got
Yeah,
to be
talk.
really bad.
Okay, I gotta be honest, the idea that any coach is out there is talking about like their spirit, I'm like, of course that is the coach of Portland. Like that's such a Portland thing to even think about. It's like, what's somebody's spirit like?
Is it really Portland? I mean, I really I mean, I could see other coaches talking about it in a more like meaningful way because they have like other plans that they can roll out and address the way that their spirit, attended to the plans. But this is just more like just grabbing it like whatever. Like, oh, it was the spirit. I don't know. I didn't listen to the press conference. Like I said, I'm doing poorly. You guys help me because I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this season.
I just don't understand how they can't fix the spirit problem. I mean, doesn't Jeremy carry sage in his bag?
All the
Like,
time,
it seems
apparently.
like the sage needs to be used in that locker room.
Yeah, and that's why I guess I said that this, of course, it's like Portland. So, like, of course, it's Portland because one, we have Jeremy. Two, we have Portland, which is Portland is a little more woo-woo than a lot of NBA cities, I can imagine coach a lot of coaches talking about energy or vibes even, but like spirit, I was like, have you been in Portland too long? Like what's in retrograde for you, Chauncey? Like it just felt like it was like out of nowhere for a guy that doesn't really talk that way. I don't know.
I think so. We've been in this period where the Blazers didn't have a ton of games. Like, so we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks, and we've only missed like a handful of games. And in the past, I would have just been like going like, "Oh, when are the Blazers gonna play? When are the Blazers gonna play?" And now I'm just kind of like, "Oh, when are the Blazers gonna play again?" I'm not. I don't know. It's just weird for me, and it feels like not my regular personality. And so I don't know. I'm struggling.
You like started this season off like really trying to give us all a pep talk too about like it's gonna be a long season. And then you told me you were built for tanking and then here we are on the Development Express, lottery station bound, and you're like, I don't know if I've got the juice for this whole season.
Well, and this is supposed to be the good part of the season, so
Yeah.
it's only going to get worse. And it's been a roller coaster ride. You know, we've had games that we've played way better than expectation, and then some of these losses have just been absolutely horrid. And it's hard to know that, if things go as everybody's talking, like we make some trades at the deadline, it's only gonna get worse. So buckle up.
Well, you totally hit the nail on the head and have helped me a lot just in that statement because I think the thing that I'm struggling with was yes, this was supposed to be the good part of the year when we had the vets who could be out there and do things. And I was prepared for seeing the young guys playing all the time. And due to injuries and whatever else, we haven't had like every time I look up and it's Klingon and Scoot and Shaden and Denny, I'm like, okay, this is fun. And then they run the veterans out, and what hurts my spirit is looking up and seeing veterans and being disappointed because they're in, because these are guys that like have been part of our team for a long time. I love Jeremy. Like I support Ant, but I look up and they're in and I'm just like, ugh, like just put the young guys in. And I don't like feeling like that because I feel like I should be excited to see every Blazer play. And because of where they are right now, I just want to see the young guys. And I feel like with all those older veterans in, they should be having decent games. I don't know why I was fooled.
I feel like the thing you're talking about is a little bit driven by injuries, like so we've had a lot of like the injury bug has been biting so early for our team the last couple of seasons where like remember last year like we'd already lost like Scoot and Shaden and Ant was our Ant was out like we just have like we lost so many guys to injuries so quickly and then like this year it was like the same, although Matisse Thybulle, who knows, is he even on this team anymore? Like nobody even asks about him. He's just had a sprained ankle for infinity years. Like I see him in street clothes, he looks about the same. Can't tell anything about that ankle, whatever. But like Robert Williams is in concussion protocol, which I don't I don't even know, like for 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, like a long time. Like these are
Yeah,
just like freak things, it feels like.
I feel like I'm worried about Rob's head. 2 weeks is a long time. I'm glad they're being slow, and hopefully they're just being slower than normal out of cautiousness. But that seems to indicate he's had concussions prior, or it was a very bad concussion. So uh, I hope that he's on the road to recovery. At least he's back with the bench and is at games. But yeah, it reminds me of Jeremy when he went through that slew of concussions and was
Mm.
out for kind of a long period of time last year.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about he had like two, didn't he? Like pretty
Yeah, I think he had three with the Blazers, but one was the year before.
and two were like in the same
And
season.
then two were pretty quick after one another in the same season.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels right. I just like I mean, I'm also glad they're being slow with concussions. I think it's really important to take head stuff seriously, and especially after what happened with Donovan Clingan, where like he hurt his knee and then they let him play again, and then it turned out it was quite bad. Um, I remember though, because we talked on this podcast, Tara, about how like when he like came back out, like after being injured, he was like dancing on the side. He was like he was campaigning hard to be back in that game. It was like very obvious. So like I sort of understand how that happens, but at the same time, I'm like, you have professionals whose job it is to step in and be like, I know you want this badly, but it's not happening. We have to be sure. And maybe that was like the Blazers moment where they had to be like, okay, let's be careful with our injuries because we don't want to hurt these guys that we're investing in and that our future is supposed to be built upon for like in a season where we're not even trying to win really.
Yeah.
But oh, there's so many injuries so soon and it
For
looks
everybody,
bleak.
really, across the NBA, there's been a lot of injuries as well. It's not just us. So, I get it, especially since it's not a winning season for us to go slow with guys. But, even Scoot's injury seemed to take a really long time to get him back. And it was very unclear. Part of it seems to just be unclear communication from the team because it was kind of, is it his car accident in the Uber and his back, or is it the thigh contusion? Then he came back for a game, then he was out for a bunch of games. So it's just been a little bit odd.
It's really hard to see the development happen too when guys are playing so inconsistently like and I don't know about you all, but like I when I look around, I like see like there's like two distinct buckets of guys that are out there like trying to like come with that winning mentality despite the fact that the purpose is not there to win, and the other guys who feel like they're a little bit more in cruise control right now. Um One of the things I wanted to point out, so I went to the game on Friday because I needed to go get my daughter a scoot glass. It was very important to my livelihood to get my daughter a scoot glass for Christmas. But I went, and one of the things I did is I for each like kind of rotation, I picked like one guy to watch, one guy to watch, one guy to watch, just to see what they were doing because sometimes it's easy to forget what some guys did during like an entire shift. And so I just wanted to like be like, what's your purpose? Because if I watch just you, I know kind of what the scheme is supposed to do for you. And like I was shocked at how much I saw Shaden just parked in a corner somewhere on offense. Like what is Shaden doing? Just standing in a corner waiting for the ball to come to him. Isn't he supposed to be like one of your like your first or second option in a lot of these lineups? Like how is he like not even touching the ball as often as he's not touching the ball? Like
He kind of seems to me to do better when he's with young guys. And then when he's out there with the vets, he kind of seems to just hold back and let them take the lead. I don't know if that's what you were seeing a little bit, but that's kind of something I've seen from him in the last several games. It's like he just kind of he's more aggressive in games where he's out with the young guys. So maybe the second half of the season will be better for him. I don't know. I don't know if he just defers to, Ant and Jeremy are starters, and so they're going to be the leaders in this game, but that's definitely something that I would like to see Shaden be better at.
I think the Spurs game too, like so like that Spurs game was like a vet game where like both Jeremy and Ant had really good games. But I just like, like even when Jeremy is in the game and he's not necessarily like scoring a lot, like he still moves a lot on the floor. Like he's still looking to get open. He still looks like he wants the ball. And like I think that's like the thing that I've been looking at just the last couple of seasons in general is who's moving off the ball, who wants the ball, who's trying to get it, or who's trying to make things happen. And I'm like, there's just too many guys that just park. And that makes me like a little bit like bummed that that's already where we are, where we're just like parking somewhere and hoping to shoot up a three before the shot clock expires. Like that's like not fun basketball.
No. And then you have Denny, who's just a chaos agent.
Yeah, he has like big Aminu energy. And like he's the only one I've seen the whole season. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. He's the only one I've seen all season to see him call for a sub because he's gassed. Like he gets he goes hard on both sides of the ball, and I've seen him call for a sub because like you can see him like he's exhausted. He's leaning over, hands on his hips, like red faced, like he needs a sub. And I'm like, who else is doing that on this team?
Yeah.
As the founding member of the Menu Appreciation Society, I agree that Denny has a Menu chaos agent energy. And I wish he was surrounded by more people who could like take advantage of the chaos. Because the thing about Aminu is that he'd do something on one end, and then on the other end, something else completely different would happen. But he had a whole bunch of other people around him who could be like, "Oh, okay, we're doing this now," and then they could switch over into it. But I don't know that this team has that capability just yet. But yeah, he plays with intensity, which sometimes I just want to see somebody with intensity. And when Donovan Clingan was out, like we talked about like the last episode, things that we were thankful for, and my thing was Donovan Clingan's intensity because he was somebody who like is like super into it, and all I can see is Denny being able to match that. I haven't really seen anybody else match that. Has anybody else?
I
No.
think I think the best compliment to him so far when I've seen him play is when he and Tumani Kamara are in the game together. And it's not because Tumani is always matching that intensity. He has that in him, I think, to match that intensity. But he's trying he those two guys seem to have really good chemistry. They know exactly where they're gonna be when they want to pass the ball. And so like I've seen like, Denny does a chaos drive to the hoop and he can kick it out to Tumani and he knows exactly where he's going to be. But the problem there is that in that moment, I watched Tumani make a decision about whether he also wants to drive the ball or whether he's going to take that shot. And sometimes he drives that ball when he absolutely shouldn't, and he needed to just take the open shot, even though he's like not quite confident there yet. But that's what that was designed to do. And if Tumani develops that shot, I can see that being a very, very like scary combo because they have nice chemistry already. They just don't have all of the pieces that they need to be super successful there. But like when they're doing defensive switches, like Tamani and Denny have really good defensive chemistry too. Like they are really good at knowing like when to help, when to not, when to switch, when to not, where to rotate to. And they're like very oppressive on defense as a duo. I would hate to be the offense running into both of them on the floor.
Yeah, we just need to get Denny better at finishing at the rim. He did better on Friday, definitely. But I feel like when he goes into his chaos barreling down, driving to the basket, he puts his head down so that when it's time to shoot the ball, sometimes I don't think he knows exactly where he is on the court. And so the ball doesn't quite go in the basket.
That's a kind way to put it.
And Scoot does that a little bit too. They kind of both have that head down, barrel through, and then trying to finish. And it's like, oh, maybe I'm not exactly where I thought I was. It drives me a little bit batty, but hopefully he'll get better at that piece.
Can I ask all your opinion on something?
Yeah.
Do we think Aiton's sick?
Ugh. I mean, it is the holiday season. There's been a lot of gatherings. It is respiratory virus season as well. So there is high possibility that that's true. But he's also just had a string of bizarre injuries. And I couldn't tell if he traveled with the team. I didn't see him in the pictures posted. And they called him unavailable for the game today, yesterday. So that makes me think maybe he didn't travel with the team, but it could also very much be he's in trouble with Chauncey and is staying home.
Punitively sick.
Yeah.
I don't understand what happened. I don't know. I'm so useless in this discussion.
This the Aiton is the is the person that Chauncey Billups said that he didn't like his spirit in that I think it was the Jazz game
Yeah.
where he played like two
Right.
minutes and then he pulled him and they never brought him back and he said, oh, he
Yeah.
didn't like his spirit. And then it's felt like since that moment I'm not really sure who like where he sits and whether he's in the rotation or he's out and whether it's punitive or injury illness related or I don't know. It just feels all very fishy and opaque.
And that doesn't seem like the way to handle him either. Yeah,
Yeah.
to just say things like that and then just move on. Yeah, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been pretty clear on my criticism of Chauncey. I think he has one management style and it works for some people and not for others, but I don't think he has a high emotional IQ to be able to manage different people differently. And I think Aiton is kind of, if you've ever managed employees, there's some employees that you have to give three compliments about what they're doing well before you address something that they're not doing well. You know, you have to be thoughtful and careful around how you address certain things so that people have the right kind of motivation. And I really think that he is somebody who you get engaged through positive motivation versus tough love. He's very much like Nurk. I think they are very, very similar players, big emotional guys with huge hearts, and you just have to approach them a little bit differently.
I totally agree with you. And I think one of the things that I've been kind of grappling with watching us think talk about development now for a couple of years is like are we best served with a coach who's a boss or are we best served right now with a coach who's a teacher? Because those are different like ways you like cultivate the best of people, right? Like because a teacher is there to meet you where you are, figure out how to support you and help you grow in the ways that you need to grow so that you can then one day go to work and have a boss. And bosses are not really like that's not necessarily their purpose, right? Their purpose is to get the most out of this person that they hired that is supposedly the right person for the job. And I understand that we signed Chauncey Billups before we knew what we were going to be doing in this franchise, and like obviously like the goals changed right after we hired him. But like I have yet to really see him put on that teacher's hat and really meet all of these guys where they are individually. He seems to talk about them in very broad strokes as a team and not about like kind of like strengths and areas of growth. And maybe that's because that all happens inside and like he doesn't like make that part really visible to the rest of us, and that would be fine. But I just like wanted to see that more of like that teacher attitude toward this team rather than this like boss attitude toward this team.
Yeah, I think if there's anybody he did that with, it was probably Scoot last year, where, you saw him talking about how Scoot's arrival in the NBA kind of felt similar to him, and he had that connection and felt like, there was all of these big expectations and they didn't pan out in the first season and how he spent time with Scoot really trying to work with him. That's the only time I've really heard him talk about being a teacher with any of the players.
And it has like big dad energy about it too. Like, oh, I see myself in this guy.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that I've heard in a couple of his different press conferences slash interviews that I've heard the coach say is that he just really wishes that he could just be out on the court with them. What do you make of that? Like, do you think that's something that I mean, I'm guessing a lot of coaches might feel that same way, but it just feels like it's really impacted him because he's I've heard him say it multiple times.
Well, I would say this. He is literally out on the court with them. And I was watching him because we got upgraded to courtside and we were, in row CC next to the Blazers bench. I had a very good line of sight on Chauncey. That man is on the court. I mean, we're not talking about foot over the line. We're talking 3 feet over the line on the actual court. And maybe that explains why he does that. I don't know why they don't call him on it because he's out there.
That's very funny. Literally on the court.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you, you sat like right by the Blazers bench like during that Spurs game. What else did you see that's interesting that the rest of us not might not be able to see from 317?
Yeah, I think it actually kind of mirrored a lot of what we were talking about. So, Donovan, big positive energy guy, big bench celebrator. He just seems to have a really happy attitude and spirit. Like he was smiling a lot, he was talking with his coworkers, he was jumping up every time something good happened. That guy is competitive. Like he just loves competitive basketball. And the other person who I thought had really good positive energy was Rob Will. That man was the lead bench celebrator. He was the first to stand up anytime anything good happened. He was watching the game with a lot of concentration and really, really paying attention for somebody who was dressed in sweats. I can definitely see why people on the team see him as kind of a leader. He really, really has a good attitude about him, and you could see that he really engages with the guys, and the game is important. And he was very, very engaged the whole time.
I love that. I just listened to his practice interview from maybe sometime this week, because the Blazers have had a lot of practices and they were talking to him because he's almost about ready to get back and he's been able to participate in some of the practice activities. So they interviewed him, and one of the things that he talked about that was so hard for being away is he says, I think, he said, I think guys kind of look to me as a leader and my voice hasn't been there. And I really feel like I could have been helpful. And I just like, I think one of the sword that's hanging over me right now that is like clouding and making this not enjoyable is I'm so afraid that he's the vet who's going to get traded.
Mhm.
And I
Mm.
think it's a very realistic fear to have because, for a number of reasons that you can read all kinds of articles about. Um, but hearing you say that, Kat, just like confirms everything that I thought that, he's been doing to this team. And because I was looking at the what awards categories, reminding myself, and I was like, most most valuable Blazer, and I was like, who, who has stepped up into that? And the closest that I could come up with was from the beginning of the season. Rob Williams seemed to have start to have a voice, and oh man, I'm so worried about him getting traded to another team because I liked his spirit. I like what he brings so
Yeah,
much.
I hope we keep him. I mean, obviously I don't know that he fits our timeline, but he fits our timeline better than some of the other vets on the team. Who knows whether he wants to be here or not, but he at least acts like he, is engaging and is positive. And I do think the question, I think your pod might have talked about leadership in one of the last couple of episodes, or maybe it was somebody else's, but I think that's also a really glaring missing thing, and they need to figure out who's going to be the leader and so they can cultivate that. And maybe it's going to be Scoot, I don't know. Maybe it could be Donovan down the road. I mean, I was really impressed watching him. He's just so competitive and he has a big smile on his face and he's talking to all the guys. Maybe he ends up being that person. I don't know. I will say Scoot was further down the bench, so I couldn't watch him quite as easily. Shaden was at the end during when he wasn't on the floor at times, and he, is kind of watching everything in the arena, not always watching the game. That's fine, maybe, but it's kind of what you see on the court a little bit, where sometimes he's really focused and sometimes he's just kind of standing in a corner. So yeah.
I kind of wonder. So I have been thinking quite a bit about leadership, Kat, this season because I'm like, who among you are going to emerge as the leader? And I know that Scoot has vocalized like that he wants to be the leader, and I kind of wonder how much of that is projected upon him by the management that like he's supposed to be the next leader. We gave up on our last leader and that relationship went sour, so now it's your job to be the leader. And I'm like, what if that's not the right fit for him? Because it's not necessarily the best player on every team or the point guard on every team that's the leader. You have like a team. I'm looking at other similar teams that are like in their redevelopment phases, different places on that journey than us. But like, so I look at like the Rockets, and the Rockets have like Fred VanVleet is a great leader for them. He's a vet. He's been there a long time. He's good. He plays point guard. It's very easy to lead from that position. But then there's other teams out there where like that's not their leader, and and it's not even necessarily like I don't know, like so even with like the Warriors or whatever, like they lead with vets that like but they lead with like they lead a lot with like Draymond Green. And like he's not that guy exactly in the game, but he is that guy on the team, which is not necessarily the same thing. And they don't necessarily have to be the same thing. Like on the sideline, he is a leader. In those huddles, he's a leader, but on the floor, like, he doesn't necessarily touch the ball every possession. And he leads by example, maybe in that way, or whatever like, euphemism you want to use. But like it doesn't necessarily like I feel like you have to have like some innate qualities about you that make you want to do that. That is not necessarily a translation of like what happens in a game.
Right.
Like everybody I think talked about Steph like he was a leader on that team, and I was like, that's not your leader, really. He's your best player and he holds the ball a lot when you play basketball. But like when you like see that team huddle up and they need to make decisions and they need to motivate each other, like that's not really what I see from Steph. And that's not a knock on him at all. That's just not innately who he is. And maybe Robert Williams can be that guy on this team for us because one, he has a lot more experience than a lot of the guys on this team playing competitive basketball. As much as I love Jeremy, Jeremy is always the last guy to a party where right before it breaks up and then he's stuck at that party while everybody's trickling out. And that's just been his career. But like Robert Williams has been on really good teams that have been playing for something even though he's been intermittently available, but he also was on teams where there was plenty of leadership available. He
Yeah.
didn't need to be that, but could he be that? Maybe. And maybe he could be the main guy for us doing that. And he doesn't necessarily have to be like that guy on the court, even in the game all the time. Like some people get plenty of great veteran leadership from guys who play, you know, sparing minutes because they're like late career, but they're exceptional leaders and that makes them highly valuable on some of these teams. And before we got on, I was thinking of this before we got on, like started recording today, we talked a little bit about the Kings. And I kind of wonder if like Harrison Barnes was more of a leader on that Kings team than like he really got credit for because like everybody thought that they would get rid of Harrison Barnes and they'd bring in a better player. And it turns out like they did do that, but like maybe they lost something too.
hmm I think you're right about projecting that Scoot should be the leader, and I really don't know. I mean, he may end up being the guy. He's very positive. There's a lot of things I like about Scoot, but this is also a team that sort of, after all of the big trades and we lost our old core, said they made it seem like this was going to be Anthony's team and he was going to be the leader. And I feel like they've been projecting Anthony as a leader for a very long time when you don't have to know very much about this team to know that man is not a leader. He will never be. It does not mean he's not good. He's just quiet. Anthony is who he is. He's a great player, but he's not going to be leading a team. And so I think you might be right about some of that projection, and it may be too early to tell, but I feel like they need somebody who's going to be doing that, whether it's interim basis or not. But, we may see Donovan rising up the ranks once he's here a little bit longer. I definitely think it's a possibility.
Also,
I
what does make me nervous? Oh, I'm sorry, Tara, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So one of the things you said earlier today, Kat, was that you see maybe that Shaden defers to the vets. And I kind of wonder if that makes it really hard for a young leader to emerge from this group, if that's the attitude within the team is that you defer to your vets.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's an expectation within the team or if that's just kind of how Shaden is as a person. Maybe it's a personal style thing versus that being a team expectation. I don't know. But it definitely seems to be a factor in things.
One thing I think we were really spoiled with Damian Lillard
Mhm.
because he stepped in there and immediately we could tell he was a leader. And I think with the really high quality ones, you just know they're not a slow burn. They come in and they are in charge, and like LaMarcus, who had been, had leadership forced upon him when a real leader came in. Not that LaMarcus's leadership wasn't real, but when somebody who like is driven automatically to do that came in, and you've become used to it being your team, and here comes somebody who can easily handle from day one it being his team, that caused a little it wasn't easy to handle. And right now nobody has stepped in where it was like clear from day one. And I hadn't thought, Rose, about it being like maybe it's just expectations that were put on Scoot that we believed in. So yeah, I think a lot of it is that I know I was spoiled with having Damian Lillard. But to go back to Robert Williams, I would love Donovan Clingan to have a full year with Rob Williams. I just remember that Ed Davis, Zach Collins pairing, you know, whatever became of Zach Collins, it was clear while they were there that Ed Davis and that Zach Collins was learning a lot from Ed Davis, and I think that it would be wonderful to have somebody like Rob Williams at least for a year around Donovan Clingan. And I had never thought about him potentially being the leader, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's like, yeah, maybe he's very young now, but he like I just said that like you should be able to see it on day one. And I'm not sure that I saw it on day one, but he did step in with that attitude of like, let's get it together, let's focus, let's be a team in this moment. So maybe, yeah, maybe he could, but I really think that he could benefit a lot from. I don't know if Rob Williams could be like the heart and soul leadership of a team just like from scratch, but I think he could be a fabulous contributor in a mentoring way, in a leadership way, to a team like the Blazers right now.
Yeah, I love Rob. I mean, it was one of those things where had we traded him this summer, I wouldn't have cared because we didn't get to watch him play. But he is a really fun guy to watch on the court. I mean, um, I don't really like the term high basketball IQ, but he really knows where everybody is on the court. He knows where the ball is. He doesn't take a lot of space up on the court, but he always ends up being exactly where he needs to be to make the play. And it feels like those are kind of in skills that are innate. And he's very, very good at that. Like his awareness of what is going on around him is very high. And I just really appreciate watching him play. He's a fun guy to watch.
I have big like it's not exactly the same, but like I have like big feelings when I see Robert Williams the way he's like where he just is on the court is it reminds me of watching Josh Hart play because like those guys just always know where to be in the mix. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they can make a play on everything, but it means that there's an opportunity for them to make a play more often than not because they know exactly where to be and how to use themselves. And sometimes it's to help another teammate, and sometimes it's for them to be able to make a play themselves. But like those are guys that are just always in the mix. They know where to be, they know where to stand, they know when to like, you know, switch, they know when to release, they know when to like, like to push down court. Like they're just always all around. And I like those guys because it also forces other guys on the team to like move too, to be more dynamic.
Mm.
Because like, if someone moves to your spot, you better like find another place to be. Um, and like I just see a lot of Blazers already at this point in the season. Like it's December 15th, and I already see guys just like kind of standing around. Just,
Yeah, it's disappointing. We don't want standing around.
no, I want to see guys who want the ball. I want to see guys who want the ball, who want to shoot the ball, who like want to move without the ball so they have a better chance of getting the ball. Like I want to see all of that happening. And like I feel like it's too early in the season for like everyone to feel like standing around in a corner and waiting to shoot the three before the shot clock goes off is the way to be.
And I feel like that's what it's been like every year for like the last 4 years.
And we haven't even
It's like
been
I'm
good at
tired of
shooting from
it.
three. Our 3-point percentage is terrible. Why do we keep doing that?
What if they're gonna, oh, I'm not even gonna say that. That's too terrible. Um, Kat, I want to hear more about your sitting so close to the court because I've never sat that close. Or like, do you have like other observations that were like, "Ooh, I never thought I'd see that," or like, can you hear what people are saying? Can like yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, you can definitely hear more what is going on the court, but it's also very loud down there, so you're not always hearing the details. It was a little bit overwhelming sensory wise because there's so much to watch. Like there's the stuff on the court, and then you can look at the bench and paying attention to what everybody is looking at and what they're doing. And And then you're cheering and you feel like you're an extension of the bench because you're right there with everybody. Matisse was walking around. He seemed like he was walking around just fine. He kind of goes back and forth. It seems like he would go and chat with Brooke for a while, then he would join the team. During one of the timeouts, there was a referee, and I don't know the referee's name, but he had a very long, laughing conversation with the referee. So I don't know if that was a referee that called him on a lot of things. But he's definitely kind of the guy who knows everybody and is just having a good time. Um, and Joe was, closer to the basket than we were, so I couldn't really see what was going on with him as much, but it was definitely fun to be able to. And then sometimes, like that last play where Denny shot from like 3/4 of the court, I couldn't quite see that as well because the bench was standing on the court in front of us. So it was hard to kind of, see what was going on that far down the court until the ball hit the backboard. And then it's like, oh gosh, I thought we had more time. That was an interesting shot. But you can also hear, when they fall, sometimes it really makes like a thud. Like those guys are
Yeah.
really um, hitting the ground hard sometimes. And when you can hear that thud, it makes sense why they have thigh contusions and those kinds of injuries going on. So yeah, it was really fun. Um, the other thing I would say is that I don't understand when you going back to when you were talking about just standing around on the court. I felt like the Jazz game was a perfect example of where there was a lot of standing around on the court from a lot of our players. Why are we not putting our two-way guys in who are trying to get a contract with the league, who have something to play for? Those guys weren't even on the bench that night. Why are they not there? Why are they not put into play when we're down 20, 30, 40 points?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like if we're here for development, nobody's developing standing in a corner waiting for the ball to get passed to them so that they can, chuck up another three. Um, And I do think that there are sometimes like do you remember was it 2 seasons ago where there was like sometimes you would put in the end of bench guys and they'd accidentally get you back in the game because they were
Yeah.
playing hungry again and like a lot of times they come in against a team like against like the team that's like they're also on cruise control because they just expect to cruise to their win. And sometimes those guys can surprise you and accidentally get you back into the game and also like light a fire under the guys who are regular rotation guys because they're like, I don't want to look like I'm getting outplayed by my two-way guys. So like it's not like you know what I mean? There's it's just more dynamic, I think, sometimes when you want to throw like the kind of end of bench guys in, because why not?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems odd to me that they wouldn't be there and they didn't have a game. The Remix had a game the next day, but they didn't have a game that night. So I don't know why they weren't there ready to go because Utah could also be a team. I could see if we were playing well, we could be up by a lot and winning that game, and maybe the two-way guys would be available in a big win. I don't know. It could go either way, but and maybe this is a segue into the G League report, but Bryce McGowan's, who is one of our two-way players, is a shooting bucket. Um, he's a great three-point shooter. And when he's playing on our G League team, you notice it because we're winning more. And Tajay Moore is a dunk machine. I mean, that guy, Tajay Moore, to be fair, does more than dunking. He often plays point guard, and I think he's really been refining his skills in a way that he looks better than he did last year. But that man is also a dunk machine, and he is very fun to watch play because he brings energy, and that man plays hard. So if we are down by 30 points, like bring those guys in. It's not going to hurt us. And it also gives guys an opportunity to maybe get seen on an NBA game and another team has an injury and, maybe they get a contract down the road. I don't know, but I guess if they're a two-way player, they can't. But I just would like to add players into the mix that have some fire and something worth playing for, and I don't get why that hasn't happened.
I remember watching Bryce McGowan's in Summer League,
Hmm.
and he was outrageous. And it's so interesting because for a long time, the Blazers were like blessed with plenty of shooting. And now it doesn't feel that way. Now I feel like we're trying to develop shooting from a lot of these guys. And it's funny because the person who I think has developed the most shooting since they've been here was weirdly DeAndre Ayton. And they
Hmm.
were like, oh no, but not you. That's what I feel like they said to him. Like, yes, we want shooting, but not you. We want you to stand in the paint and put your arms up. But like his shooting looks quite good now. And he's developed a really nice shot and he shoots from three and it looks good and comfortable. And yeah, I would love to see us fish more intentionally for shooting because what we did is we got a lot of cutters.
Hmm.
We got a lot of cutters, we got a lot of guys who are there to like dunk and like that's great, but we sacrificed some shooting to get a bunch of dynamic cutters and now all we have is guys passing up threes to drive to the hoop where it's crowded or taking threes at like where they're like their shot is just not quite there yet, so they have to just take a lot of reps. Like I think on Friday I looked up at they have like the big board up there and it was like we were shooting 20% from three and it was like we had taken so many of them. I couldn't remember the last time we had not taken a three and we were shooting 20% from three. I'm like, should our shot selection look like this if that's how we're shooting from here? Because it's not like it's been good all year. Like
It
it's not 20% bad all the time, but I can't remember the last time it was like really good at the end of the game.
Yeah, it seems like it's good in spurts. And those are the games that we're winning when our 3-point shots are high percentage. And then we have games where it's completely dry for everybody. And that's where we're getting beat by 30 or 40 points.
I think that until the vets are no longer playing, we're going to be hungry for these hungry guys, you know? And it's just taking longer. It's taking a while, and I get like the front office not wanting to like settle for just any offer. But like, why did we invest in a G League team if we're just gonna rely on vets and not get great results? So I'm optimistic that the second half of the year will be able to, see some more of that. So we have the three two-way guys, Tajay, Bryce McGowan's, and Justin Minaya, who I kind of feel like we've seen less of him than I thought that we would. We've had a lot of blowout games. Like, why aren't you rolling out Justin Minaya? We know that we know he's good at steadying the ship when things are going down. Are there some other guys that because there've been I don't think I think you were saying the Rip City remix hasn't has a ton of home games yet this year, but anybody else on the team stand out to you, Kat, in the games that you've attended?
Yeah, so the team started out with a long road trip, and the team is currently at 3 wins, 3-10.
Oh,
So they've not
ouch.
been very good. Yeah, it's been a hard season so far, but yeah, it seems like it was a travel heavy first part of the season, and so there's been less home games. And some of the home games have been when the Blazers travel, and so not all the two ways have been there. I mean, you really see a big difference when Tajay and McGowan's are playing with the remix. They look like a whole different team. Um, but there are some interesting guys. It's also been a different season in that we don't have any rookies playing. So that's been one of the big differences because Donovan Klingen is our only rookie and he's not going to play for the G League. He's good enough. He doesn't really need that practice. Whereas we had Roops and Chris who were playing regularly with the remix last year. So that's been just a different, it's just been different than it was last year.
Something else that's really different this year, and it's probably it might be too soon to tell or whatever, but their coach just was the assistant GM and just stepped in to decide to be a coach. Any observations that are worth sharing at this point that you've noted?
Yeah, so Sergi is he has done some coaching before. He was, in our front office and took over the coaching, but he was an assistant with the Jazz for a
Okay.
while. So he does have some
So he
coaching.
had more coaching experience than our previous head coach than the
Yeah.
Blazers head coach.
Yeah. So it's hard to know, but I'm guessing that's his first time as a head coach. And so that's going to have some learning curves to it as well. It's been hard to tell what the issue is with our team, to be honest with you. And we had a lot of new guys, so hardly any returners from last year. And so, the team, and not watching G League before last year, I don't know if that's kind of the normal course of how things work in the G League, when you have almost the entire team turnover or if that's just kind of how it is going to be every year. It might just be how it goes. So that's been different too. So I think it probably can be attributed to a lot of different things happening.
Yeah, I think when we uh uh I think I have heard that yeah, there's turnover is natural and expected for the G League. There's not a lot of continuity. But the thing that I also thought was a little odd about the coaching situation was that he said he was going to do it for 1 year. Like when he was hired, he was like, "I'm just going to be here for a year, and then I'm going to go back to being the assistant GM of the Trailblazers." And so I'm anxious to see as the season goes on because you know how a lot of teams use their G teams as like their incubators for
Hmm.
ideas. Like we're only going to take 3-point shots this year, like the Houston Rockets G League team famously did before they turned over to just their 3-point extravaganza that they turned into. So I'm wondering if we're going to see any interesting wrinkles like that the team is going to try that maybe might make it to the Blazers.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see that too. Um, One of the interesting players this season is James Booknight is on the remix, and he was the former number 11 pick of the Charlotte Hornets in 2021, I believe, 21 or 20, I think it was 21. So he was a, anticipated first round, number 11 pick. He's also a Yukon guy. So that's kind of fun. And I saw Donovan Klingen has been to two remix games. One was on the Blazers night. He probably was roped into it because he's the rookie. But then he came back the next game, and I saw a picture of him and Book Night together. So they've got that Yukon connection. And he ran into a little bit of legal trouble with Charlotte. He was found passed out in his car and had some guns on him, and I think was picked up for driving under the influence. I don't know that he was driving or if he was just passed out sleeping in his car, but he had some legal issues. He's been picked up by the Remix. He's been a really fun player to watch. He plays hard. He is scrappy as all get out. He's, you know, diving after the ball. I mean, he plays really aggressive basketball. And so I kind of wonder about if he's going to be somebody to watch. I don't know. Um, I didn't follow any of that when he was let go by Charlotte, because that was in like 2022, and I just don't watch them to know enough what happened after that. But he's been a really fun guy to watch play on the Remix. He's just a bundle of energy. He plays really hard, super scrappy, going after the ball, very competitive. So he's somebody to look out for. Like I said, Bryce McGowan's is he's a shooter. He's a very good shooter. He's hitting those three pointers. You notice a very big difference in the score when he's playing on the team, but he hasn't always been with the Remix because sometimes he'll be with the Blazers. Um, we have Sterling Manning, who is also kind of an interesting guy. The first couple of games, I was like, why does this guy look familiar to me? And then I realized, oh, he reminds me of Caleb Swanigan. He wears the same number as Caleb. He wears number 50, and he's got the body of Caleb when we drafted him. He's kind of a bigger guy, um, kind of has similar hair. He just kind of, rest in peace, Caleb. And I don't mean that in a negative connotation at all. I was like, God, I know this guy. I know this guy. And that's what he reminded me of when it came to. So, he's been really interesting to watch. And then Henry Drell has played for a couple of different teams. He's been on G League. He's from, oh, I'm forgetting where he's from, Eastern European guy. He's been a little bit on or off. He also shoots the three, and when he's shooting well, he has really high scoring games. But then, the next game, his three-pointer may not be on, and so his consistency is lacking a bit. But there's definitely guys who are fun to watch on the G League, and hopefully there will be more home games. See, they have the cup right now, and I think we're the last team in the Western Conference. So there's kind of this dry spell of games like the NBA Cup. I do believe they're playing today, this afternoon, but they're away. And then we don't have a home game until like New Year's Day. So,
Hmm.
Wow.
Sounds like it might do my spirit good to come to watch some G League if I
yeah, come out, come watch Tajay dunk. I mean, you're really good for about if he's playing for the Remix, two or three dunks a game. That will be good spirits. I love watching him play. He's like he told Seth that his heel, he has some problem with his back bones. We were um we had two games against the Lakers back to back that I was able to watch, and yeah, Tajay is just fun to watch when he's playing. I love that guy.
and assume we'll probably see more of him in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, that's the thing about the G League is these guys are really looking to get their breakouts. So they play hard. You don't see the standing around. The other player that I should at least mention is Isaac Nogues, who's from Spain. And if you listen to Kenny G's podcast about the remix, um, Eric loves Nogues. He is a thief on the court. He just steals the ball. He's getting like 4 to 5 steals a night. He doesn't shoot though. So He's kind of the remix thief. But he doesn't shoot much. But defensively, he's got a really interesting game. And if he can develop a shot, he'll be an interesting guy to watch. So, yeah,
He-
it's interesting.
He's a
More to
pickpocket.
come. More to come. But hopefully, we'll get to see more of our two-way guys getting some playing time in the second half of the season. And we'll see some better. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know why they haven't been playing them more. Even in some of the garbage time that they've been playing in, it's like, okay, if we're down 30 or 40, like put guys in. You don't have to wait till the last 2 minutes. Give them the last 5 or 7 minutes. We're not going to win this game.
That's right. Let some people play who have something to gain from it instead of just making your starters play out there just because.
Right.
Well, I loved our G League report from you, Kat. Thank you very much for getting us up to speed and letting us know who to keep our eyes on and keep our fingers crossed that we're going to get um, some more of our two-way time. We have one more assignment for us to do today, and that is to start our playlist. We haven't even done a playlist yet this year, so we were like, we better get started on that. We're because expecting that we're gonna have things are gonna change. We're just gonna get it started today. We're not trying to make a playlist for the whole season. We're doing a playlist for how things are going right now. So who would like to start with their first song selection? Don't all speak at once.
Rose,
I can start. I can start. Okay. So this is gonna be something. This is my first choice for our playlist is a song that for people who know me, know I love this song, and it's also like very much of like tells my age. It's like very much a song of my like generation. So this is a song from the Killers. For one thing, I came up in like the generation where there was like all the bands with the names. There was like the Killers, the Vines, the Hives, I think. Um, but there was a bunch of those names of bands. So anyway, but I think about the Killers a lot associated with the Blazers simply because their jersey patch sponsor is Brightside Windows, and probably the Killers' most famous song ever is Mr. Brightside. Um, that's not my choice though. I think we should probably maybe add that one to the playlist because I wish that they would add it to the in arena playlist simply because that's our jersey patch. But no, the song that I chose is the Killers song All These Things That I've Done. And for anyone who knows this song, um I mean, I'll say sometimes it's a little bit like dark. But there's two things that I think about a lot that makes me feel like this is a good fit for the Blazers. In one of the verses, um, Brandon Flowers, who's their lead singer, says, "Another headaches, another heartbreaks. I'm so much older than I can take, and my affection, well, it comes and goes. I need direction to perfection. No, 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 no." Which is to say that I think that like that sums up a way that a lot of us feel is like we're like this is our team, we love them. It's really hard to take the pain over time, and like we want to like have a path to perfection, which we know it doesn't exist, and so and then you see it here like Brandon Flowers like his like dissonance of like I want a direction to perfection. No, 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 that's not possible. And then in the bridge, there's this other part where he just repeats over and over and over, I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. And I think that that makes me feel like really seen right now as a Blazer fan, which is to say, like, I have so much soul and belief and love for this team, but I'm not a soldier and I'm not built for this kind of heartache all the time. I'm like not like the idea of just marching out there time after time after time is only so much I can take. But anyway, that's my choice. The Killers, all these things that I've done. It it's a good song right now for the way that I'm feeling.
That's funny. I tried so hard to come up with the song that would be like fitting for like, here's a song that reminds me of Scoot, or here's a song for Donovan, or here's a song for the coach. But all I could think of were songs that express the way I'm feeling. And Maybe this is just gonna be an emotional playlist.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine by me.
Season. We're gonna we have we'll talk to each other instead of going to therapy and complain about the Blazers and couch it as Blazer complaints. My I'll go next because mine is sort of along those lines. It's for non-blondes, what's up? The relevant part, of course, is the chorus. So I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out. Oh, well, yeah, I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. Okay. And I'm feeling a little peculiar. So I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs what's going on because I have no idea what this team is doing. That is that just encapsulates it perfect for me.
Perfect. No notes.
I
No
actually like
notes.
that. I like that. I like both of those actually. I was struggling with the playlist. Part of it is just I'm in such a meh mood about this season that it's hard for me to get excited. So maybe I was looking for songs about keeping my spirits up, and I went with some oldies. Maybe I was feeling nostalgic for better days. I don't know. Um, but I went with Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. That is kind of what's getting me through this season because tomorrow's going to be a better day, hopefully, and our tomorrow might not actually be tomorrow. It may be next season, but I'm just trying to think about this is the process you have to go through, and it's gonna look ugly for a couple of years, but hopefully there will be a better day on the horizon.
I love that we're all on the same page. It's like we tried, but I'm sorry, this is just going to be about how we're feeling right now. I love that one.
That yeah, that's and also that's far more hopeful than like I could have projected. So I appreciate you for bringing a little bit of that. Um, isn't that was that like that was like Bill Clinton's campaign song, right? When he ran for president in like the 90s was Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow. I think that was the same one. Um, my next song, my second song is so I regularly try to bring people closer to Korean music, and this is no different. I will bring you a Korean song every time we make a playlist. Sorry, not sorry. But this one's a little bit of like a bridge song because it involves a popular American artist as well. This song is called Still Life by RM, who is a member of the group BTS, and he made it featuring Anderson .Paak. Um, Anderson .Paak actually he's part Korean. I think his mother's Korean. But anyway, most people know him through his collaboration with various other American artists like Bruno Mars, etc. But there and I'm gonna like I'll like make sure that I share purely the English translation of these lyrics, but um there is in the first verse of this song, RM says essentially like I'm still life, but I'm moving. Just live now, going forward. A still life that does not stop. Keep my flower blooming again. Give me no name because I'm untitled. My life is on display, still life. The past is gone and the future is unclear. And it's more and more about that. So it's a little bit about like, so okay, I'll say that that's a little bit how I feel. Is that like we're still moving and we don't know what we are. Don't title us because we don't know what we're trying to be, but we're still moving. And also, quite frankly, when I hear still life, but I'm moving, I'm like, that's what I think about those guys standing in the corner waiting for the ball to come to them. They are still life, but they're technically moving at times on the court. So still
That
life.
fits you and everything that you've been saying so well because also the part where you're talking like about like what are you? Like what is this lineup? And that's kind of like the still life untitled. It's like okay, like maybe we're starting to see a thing and we're still trying to figure out like what it is. I think that
Yeah.
fits very consistent with everything that you've been saying. I love it.
Yeah, I don't even know what to expect. I would like to be able to have meaningful expectations of my team, but when I don't know what they're trying to do, it's like hard to judge them. So like I'll say like my expectations are quite low because I have like there's like nothing where I'm like, oh, this is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to. I'm like, I don't know what they're trying to do. If I can make any sense of what they're trying to do, I will consider that a win. But like my expectations are in the ground, and sometimes that means that I'm really excited and I'm surprised and it's very happy to see like a really gutsy win. And other times I'm like, well, I don't know if they like met expectations or they fell below them because who knows what to expect from them.
Thank you for reminding me about expectations because I have always, you know, I'm not going to say prided myself, but I've always identified very strongly with people who have very low expectations. And it's like I just let it go out the window. So I need this is helping me focus. I super appreciate it. I will do my next, my second song. We're just doing two each today. My second song, um, I'm still loving the rebrand from tanking to lottery bound. And then when we added the whole Development Express pulling into Lottery Station, like that is fun. And that is like I think probably because we haven't had very many games lately, I've kind of like, you know, haven't been is into that whole uh thing that we're trying to build. So when I was choosing my second song, I was like, okay, I want to find a song about a journey because to me it is, it's about the journey. It's like, I always talk about the storm and you have to just drive through it. The only way out is through. So my only way out is through song that I chose is this is a throwback. Eddie Rabbit's Driving My Life Away. I'm driving my life away, looking for a better day, looking for a sunny day. This song is about the journey. He's driving, he's on a road trip. The windshield wipers are going, and the music is going in time with his windshield wipers. He goes to a truck stop. He almost hooks up with the girl, but like, no, she's too young. So there we are making better choices, and learning, which is what we want. And yeah, the song then, he goes through the storm, but just like the whole, driving forward, driving my life away. And it doesn't mean driving my life away like I'm leaving it behind like it's bad. It's more like I'm driving my life because I'm driving forward to drive into the future and whatever comes next for me. So that's probably more about an Eddie Rabbit song than anybody wanted to know. Fun fact, I actually looked him up on Wikipedia a little bit, and he seems like he was a great guy. So Eddie Rabbit, Driving My Life Away is my choice number two for this year's playlist.
I feel like that just took me back to the 70s and riding in my parents' station wagon, hearing Eddie Rabbit, like one of those people I haven't thought about in forever.
Got a fun
So,
beat to it. It's kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like, was I gonna do like On the Road Again? Like that one doesn't feel quite right. So anyway,
I
what's
almost
your
chose a Muppet song.
Oh,
moving right along?
Yes, I almost chose a Muppet song, but I didn't.
the Muppets are always appropriate.
Always
I
good.
I feel like I kind of called this one in too. I just I wasn't in the mood. I wasn't moved, but I picked Elton John, I'm Still Standing. I am still standing, and I will be in the third bench cheering our team on. It's hard sometimes. Perseverance. We will get through. We will be cheering this team on even when it's difficult. And there have been some difficult times this season. I hope it gets better.
I mean, this is what we were supposed to be feeling, right? Right. I mean, this it's not a surprise, right? This is what we were expecting, right?
I feel like part of what happened is we had some early games where we looked better than I expected us to look, and I expected a little bit more of that. And it seems like our bad losses are just so horrendous. We give up. Maybe the team pulls a Chris Paul. I can't believe we didn't talk about that. Like, what happened in that first quarter? Did he just not want to work? I heard a lot of people saying maybe Chris just didn't want to work that day and mouthed off at the ref. And got out of it. I don't know. Maybe that's what our team is doing.
Maybe he's just really excited to be in Portland and he just wanted to get to all those Portland activities that he's used to participating in. And he was just like, I gotta get out of here.
I had a totally different theory, which was that like Chris Paul, like now he's traveling and he's older, and like the time zone shift is just not good for him. And he's like, it's his bedtime. He needs to go home and go to bed because he's an old man. And this West Coast thing, everybody always complains like, oh, staying up for West Coast games, staying up for West Coast games. Chris Paul's like, what about me staying up for them? I gotta play in them. And then he's probably like, okay, well, we just had Giving Tuesday. I'm gonna make a donation by getting tossed from this game to like whatever the fund is that the players put their like fine money into. And he's like, I'm gonna go make a nice little donation to the foundation, and then I'm gonna go home and get a good night's rest on this West Coast time.
I like that theory. I mean, I've just never seen anything like it because those fouls were not super egregious in any way, and they happened like 11 seconds apart in the first quarter. Like, who does that?
I don't know. And he has kids. Like, does he not know how to keep his cool? Like,
He's
you just
got,
can't let somebody get under your skin that quickly or easily. And it also wasn't even like a ref. Like, so sometimes I feel like, so Chris Paul is like a vendetta against Scott Frost or
yeah.
whatever. This was just a like a nobody. I forget who the ref was that game, but it was like, it wasn't even a guy that's been around forever. Like if it was like Scott Frost, I'd be like, okay, well, this is some Frost Chris Paul beef. No, it's just some random guy.
I mean, Scott Foster.
Oh, Scott Foster, sorry, yeah.
You probably just watch Hot Frosty, right? On the Hallmark Channel.
Yes, yes,
We're
I did
thinking
that.
Frost. Apparently that's the movie that's the Hallmark movie to watch this year is Hot Frosty. Maybe it's not on Hallmark, maybe it's on Netflix. Um when you said about him going to bed, I just had this vision of him in like one of those long like mama in her kerchief and I in my hat with like one of those long thing and like a candle like in all the Christmas things and Chris Paul just like tucking himself into bed on a long winter's night.
Yeah, at the nines. He had to go,
Yeah.
he had to go back to the hotel before so he could get room service before they closed.
When they get kicked out of a game, do they leave, or do they just watch from back in the back room somewhere?
No, but I mean, would you tell Chris Paul he couldn't leave if he wanted to leave?
It also might be different if you're on the road versus like, you know, the home team. Um, but like, no one would know. He's not, all I know is that they're not allowed to come back out. I don't even think they're allowed to come back out when the game is over. Are they?
I don't know. We'll have to
Because
look into that.
usually don't see those guys like come out from the back when like when the team wins and then they like, huddle up and on the court. Like those guys are just
Kat, did that
way.
happen anywhere near you? When,
Well, we weren't down at the courtside at that point,
okay.
so
It was so
no.
early in the game that you
And
weren't even all the way down there.
it was just odd because it wasn't like an egregious foul. Like I said, it was just kind of regular game stuff. And he was clearly mouthing off to the ref, but you couldn't tell what he was saying. I'm going to make it a phrase. Like I'm pulling a Chris Paul means I'm ready to go home
I
early.
love that.
I love that so much because quite frankly, like I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again because he must have just said a magic word. That's the only thing I can imagine
Yeah.
because usually refs also give you a longer leash earlier in a game like that. He must have just said a magic word.
Okay, speaking of magic words, we have one more thing to do, and that is have our takes. Anybody want to volunteer to go first? Okay. I'll go first. It is not a fully thought out take, and it is piggybacking off of a previous not fully thought out take. I've spoken before in the past about the dunk score, and I did not say I had a take about it. I just said that I was curious about it. I'm developing a take, although it is not fully baked. But I think you're right, Rose. I think it's baloney. I do believe that we can have metrics and we can have a matrix to try to compare things. But to evaluate a one dunk as better than another, I've seen nights where Shaden had a very high dunk, and then I've looked at the dunks above him and been like, excuse me? So I do not think that the dunk score, I'm not saying that it's a failure. I'm saying that I have my eye on it and I am skeptical. That's my take.
I appreciate it. Welcome. I maintain my position, which is that we have no business trying to quantify art, and that when we're talking about dunks, like we're talking about art. And like it's a wonderful thing to watch, and also we don't have to appreciate the same things about the dunks, and it feels like it's big internet culture to be like, no, there's one right answer about what the best piece of art is. Which to me is just very silly, and that's how I feel about dunks. There's no one right answer to what the best dunk is because dunks are awesome. I mean, except for when you're Tara and you're off dunks, then they're not awesome. But like we should just be able to appreciate all of them because they're all so fun and athletic and exciting. And like, quite frankly, for me, the thing that makes me most excited about dunks is like the context of for which it happens. Like if it is at a time that really, really matters for your team, those are the best dunks. You know what I mean? Like those are the ones that make you feel good. They get you out of your seat. They make you want to get back in the game. Like the most aesthetically pleasing dunk happening when you're down 40 points is just like, well, whatever. I mean, yes, I appreciated that moment, but you're also down 40 points, so I'm going to still keep my butt in the seat probably. We
Yeah,
all
I
just
think
like different
I,
stuff.
I think I saw something where they get rated higher if there's a defending player that they're dunking over. So it's not entirely the art, it is who is there, which I think it could go both ways. But it is weird to quantify those things.
Can't we just like them all? We can't we just like them all and feel good about liking them and liking
Yes.
what we like?
I think you can have a discussion about and have some, and if you want to pull out what you're basing it on, you could do that. It's just that the initial dunk score that they've come up with does not fall in line with what mine says. So like jumping is the like one they measure on jump, power, style, and defensive contest. So all things that like logically, except for style, that you can measure, but then the style is like this big open thing that I don't know that makes it so that like who's the most popular person that gets the most clicks? Let's give them a lot of style on their dunk. Not accusing anybody of anything. Allegedly, I've got my eye on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you for reporting back on the dunk score.
Also, I will say the Blazers are averaging at this point 5 dunks per game. So that is significantly up over the many years where they were the least dunkiest team in the league. But the problem is, I've known this all along, like dunks do not correlate to win, but at least it's something that we can watch. So if I was looking for good news, something to hang on to, I would say at least we get more dunks than we used to. Kat, how about you? What's your take?
Well, I have been not super vocal about our coaching situation. I am not a Chauncey believer, but I have also not been calling for him to be done because it is kind of we know what this season is. It doesn't seem like he's going to be re-signed, or he's not acting like somebody who is actively trying to be re-signed. But I think after Friday's game, I am finally at the please fire him, Trailblazers. Give us that Christmas gift or holiday gift or New Year's gift, whatever you celebrate, because I'm finally kind of done. Just let one of the assistants take over. We can have some time to fill the head coaching seat for next year. Things will, I'm sure teams will make changes over the summer and we might have some better options, but I don't think keeping him is going to do anything super beneficial to our team, and I don't think it's going to hurt it. And it would give the fans something to rally around. I believe that. So I'm finally there. Give it to us this holiday season, and we can all move on.
I am not going to argue with that take.
No, no. As also it's the last year. Like,
Yeah.
like you're not gonna hire somebody right now. You get an interim and then you regroup in the summer and see what happens and hire somebody. Yeah, I'm with you, Kat. Also, I appreciate like a lot of so like some people have been calling for him to be fired the entire time.
Right.
And so I know that when people who have not been doing that decide it's like time to say that, it's because it's like it's come to that. It's not like someone who's been screaming loudly for 3 years.
Yeah.
Just fire Chauncey every time and you're like, okay, now I feel done.
And excuse me. The boos are getting audibly louder at the game when they announce him, which I think people, at the beginning there was some booing and then people kind of gave up and we accepted where we are with his coaching tenor or whatever. But it feels like this season the boos have been audibly louder at the beginning of games. So it's time.
That can't be good for the team spirit.
No.
That's right. If we're worried about spirit, which everyone seems to be a little bit worried about spirit, what kind of spirit we don't know, Christmas spirit maybe, but I think that many people could get into the Christmas spirit this year if they were given the gift of an interim head coach.
Yeah, and I don't like, and I don't think anybody here does, like calling for somebody's dismissal. But at this point, I don't see that he could be enjoying this either.
Mm-mm.
Like,
No.
let him just have the rest of his year and, stop the count against his record, which by now is like not probably what he was expecting. Yeah, so okay, well, we did it. We did the songs, we got our G League report, we learned a
I
little
have
bit
to give
about
you my
what.
take. I still have to
Gosh,
give you
I'm
my
so
take.
sorry. I thought you already went. Go
No,
for it.
no, I didn't. But I really appreciate the takes that I heard from you all today, and I just have a take that I'm here to convey on behalf of my daughter. So this is not really my take, although I'm amplifying this take. Um, so my daughter associates the best players with the players who have, I think, the puffiest hair. So, it's like when I was at the game, my husband texted me and he was telling me what my daughter was saying about the game at home. And one of the things which she said was that I just like Scoot because he has the puffiest hair. Scoot is fast, he has the puffiest hair, um, and she loves him the most. So what I'm saying is my take is maybe we should get some more puffy hair back on this team because like for a hot second for one game, Tamani had puffy hair.
Hmm?
And there are lots of guys with enough hair to have puffy hair. Maybe Chris Murray is growing some puffy hair. We're not really sure. Tara, you're right. He hasn't cut it, and it makes sense that he would have cut it by now. He might be growing it out. What if we need to be the puffy hair team to get better? I don't know. She's only 8, but she sometimes says stuff that is far more intelligent than I could ever say. So I'm saying maybe if we're in the lab, maybe we should figure out like remix guys, can you do some puffy hair for a while? And if it works there, let's bring it to the main team and do puffy hair over there. I'm just saying maybe puffy hair is maybe it's the key.
I'm here for it. It would be fun to see. And I thought two looked so cute when he had his puffy. He reminds me of Josh Hart sometimes out on the court because Josh would go back and forth between braids and puffy hair. And Tumani reminds me a lot of Josh Hart. And sometimes I'm like, who is that out there?
It blocks court vision. There's a very functional thing, like people got to look past your fluffy hair. So yeah, puffy hair. Let's just try it out. We got nothing. I mean, we're just trying stuff this year. We don't have an identity yet. Maybe we can be the puffy hair team.
I mean, let's roll it out.
Yes. Okay, that's my take. Puffy hair. Let's try
Uh,
it.
I am very sorry I stepped on it.
No, you're fine.
Thank you both for this great conversation. I feel like it was a little bit therapeutic. You both opened my eyes to some different ways of thinking about things. Yeah, I came in with a lot of bravado at the beginning of the season saying I'm built for tanking. And I maybe didn't think too much about what that was actually going to mean, but this conversation today has helped, so thank you very much. Where is anybody these days in terms of like social media? Where can people find you if they want to hear more of your takes?
Blue Sky. I think we've all moved to Blue Sky and are trying to migrate there. I still have a Twitter, but I am actively trying not to post to Twitter. It will probably be going away sometime soon. Still use it for some of the alerts. But yeah, I'm Kat Runzer at Blue Sky, and that's mainly where I'll be. And then the third bench also has an Instagram page.
Awesome. I'm also on Blue Sky, so you can find me on Blue Sky, Rose L. Harding on Blue Sky. Um, you can find me in the We Have a Take Discord. You can find me anywhere you see a random Korean lady with pink hair. It was actually so great because I stepped off the Max train to go to the game on Friday, and I October Desert Lover was standing behind me getting off the same train, and then she just goes, "Rose, is that you?" Because I've never met her in person before. She's like, "I saw the pink hair." So clearly it works for people to find me this way. So yeah, if you just look around in your community, if you see that girl with pink hair, that's probably me. And then you can also find me on Instagram, although I don't really post there that much. So, but same handle on Instagram. Tara, where can people find you?
At TCB Biggs on Blue Sky. I would say if either you're going to get rid of your Twitter, make sure you get your archive because it's extremely entertaining. Or it could be. I know mine was. All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you all so much. And go Blazers!
Go Blazers!